Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. This morning, my name is Molly Wall, Management Analyst and Coordinator for the Nevada Commission for Women, and I'm joined today by Nevada Commission for Women Commissioner Diane Ferron and Liz Ortenburger, CEO of SafeNest. What brings us here today is Commissioner Diane Ferron's call of action for the Commission is supporting parents in the workplace through COVID-19. Commissioner Ferron, would you please tell us about why this call of action is important to you?
I'm happy to do so, and very happy to be together with both Liz and Molly this morning to be able to reach out and offer some answers in addition to the multitude of questions that we're all facing as well as challenges. In fact, my call of action was inspired both by an amazing Facebook post that Liz Ortenburger, CEO over at SafeNest, shared a number of weeks ago at a critical time that talked about not only being a parent, a working parent, faced with distance learning and the impacts of that, but really importantly, an employer and a thoughtful, compassionate, as well as good business-minded employer, talking about how she recognized the impact on her employees and what I thought were some really innovative ways of responding, supporting, and making it more manageable, which was also good for, I'm sure, the effective operations of her critically important organization. In addition to which, the work on the Nevada Commission for Women is supported by tremendous efforts and capabilities by Molly Walt. Molly Walt is now a parent who is dealing with the distance learning effects up in Carson City, Nevada, of working from home, so still having that full-time job and commitment, but having the ability to support her children, and I believe it's 3 that are being schooled from home, and be able to have it all work. So how can it work better was my question, and I knew that both of you would be able to give some answers in that regard. So I'm so pleased to have this opportunity.
Well, thank you. Yes, it is a very important topic. And thank you, Liz, for joining us. So we'll go ahead and get started with some of the questions that Commissioner Ferron and myself have come up with. And we're very, very grateful for your time to address these questions.
It's my pleasure.
Molly.
Thank you for having me.
And Liz, if you could share with us what some of the struggles are that you're witnessing with your employees, trying to balance still doing a good job with your organization and that important work, and being outstanding parents. This may be both women and men, certainly, and the remote learning environment that is a challenge for all parties.
Yes, so SafeNest is a domestic violence agency. We're a nonprofit. We have 81 full-time staff in 11 locations, just to give people an idea of scope and complexity. And as you can imagine, in the world of domestic violence, we're a 24/7 operation. And it's been a little bit, right, we've had to, as many people, we'd have to sort of shift throughout COVID, given the circumstances, to understand and to support staff. Well, I think I'd like to say my staff are fortunate because they also have a single mom with 2 school-age kids as their CEO. So I think my ability to have empathy and compassion is also just the reality of the fact that I'm in this too. So when we first hit COVID, last spring, I had to sort of sit down with myself and say, something's got to give here. We have to completely uproot the entire sort of operational structure of SafeNest to meet this demand. All of a sudden, my kiddos are home. They're 7 and 10. And I have, not only do I have a staff, but I also have a clientele that needs support around their kids. So as I started to navigate it for myself and figuring out what I could do, that just correlated into, right, okay, if I can do this and understanding that I'm a high income earner, I have to make sure that I'm supporting this at all levels of my organization. So I took a really solid look, brought the board of directors along and said, here's what we're going to be doing. So at the beginning phases of COVID, so really the spring semester of school, we allowed folks to work from home that could. Now, the nature of our work is such that you cannot take crisis phone calls from home. You can't plan it. The topic, the subject matter is horrendous, and you cannot be distracted in that space. So for our staff that needed to work hotline and some of the direct service areas, our shelter, we started to say, okay, well, we're going to start to subsidize some of what you need, or we're going to shift schedules, or we're going to look at how we can make this work for everybody. So immediately had my HR team engage with every staff for whom was affected with school-age children. The other thing that we did was we really started to build a culture around we're in this together, because you can play this role of like, you support the staff with kids, then all of a sudden you got your staff without kids going, wait a second, why are they getting all the freebies? Like, you're like, okay, nobody's getting a freebie, everybody's struggling. But we came together on a weekly phone call around COVID. People were able to switch shifts. People were able to figure stuff out. But I really worked with my HR team to get that cultural piece in place where it's like, we're in this together. And this is really difficult for everybody. And we've all had the rug pulled out from under us. And those of us that have school-age kids, we can't leave our kids at home unattended. And yet there's work to be done. So there was not a lot of internal strife. Fast forward to now, where the school district is all distance learning. I recognized early on, I was fortunate, the YMCA has a program, so my kids are there 5 days a week, and then realized we have got to subsidize this for all of our staff. So we said to all of our staff, we will do half. We will pay half of the cost, up to $75 a week per child, for you to support the distance learning space. That's what we could afford. The other thing that was really clear was that the school district didn't really know how it was managing this. And the school district, and I have been heavily critical on this and continue to be, the school district has managed this from a space as if every child is at home with a parent who's helping them. And for those of us working in industries where we're essential and that's not the case, our kids are getting left behind. And even with the supports that we're trying to put in place, there is still ridiculous things that the school district does. Some of that's at the teacher level, some of that's at the district level, that are really unintentionally harmful for those of us that are still having to work. So I try to post and help my staff. They can have parent-teacher conferences whenever they need them. They can use the copy machine if they need it, right? Even color, print and color. I don't like, get what you need for your kids, because at the end of the day, if they're coming to work stressed or worried about, did they get that math packet or what happened there, I need to connect with their teacher, it's really difficult. The other thing that I was really cautious of is the moms that I have that are single moms. And I don't have any single dads, but this is true for single dads too. I just don't have any single dads on my staff team with school age kids. Moms are, we're uniquely kind of set up to be the contact oftentimes for the teacher. And this is certainly not everybody's case, but that puts a whole nother layer of stress in the distance learning environment, because all of a sudden you're in a meeting and it pops up on your phone in the nice apps that we have. Oh, your child has an F in reading and 7 missing assignments. Well, I know that that's a huge distraction. So everybody here has the gracious space to say, you know what, I'm really sorry. It's parent teacher hours from 2 to 2:30 today. I have got to connect with my child's teacher, so I need something to move around. So it's a really long-winded way of saying some of it's individualized. Some of it we could say, okay, here's the sweeping sort of cultural changes that we need to make sure are in place. And this is how we can make you whole, or at least partially whole financially, so that you can find a solution that works.
Impressive.
Thanks. Oh, Molly, I think you're muted.
Very impressive. Yeah, I mean, that's kudos to you. Is what I have to say to that. So the question I have, and you touched upon it just a little bit, but I know spring was insane for all of us, actually, parent, non-parent. It was really, really a trying time, emotionally, all of that. But have you experienced in this fall moving forward, have you experienced within your employees, the mounting stress, low morale, and with that then a decreased productivity by your employees? Or with what you have implemented, have you seen that it has helped. Maybe give us a little of spring
Yeah.
this fall of everything that you've implemented.
So I haven't seen any of the negative fallout that you're talking about, and I think that's for two major reasons. One is that when this first hit, I did a full financial analysis of what this is going to mean for SafeNest. Went to the board of directors. I have an incredible board of directors led by our president, Dana Dwiggins, who just has been very courageous around all of this. And I said, look, our funding's not in jeopardy. The way that we're funded from the federal government, we're solid for 18 months. We know marriage license is going to play a role, but here's how we can fill that in, and the PPP loans and all these things. I then went back to my staff and said, this does not change our accountability dynamics and all of the same HR protocols that we've had, but we are not going to be doing layoffs. Everybody's job is safe. And so that took a layer of stress off of the agency that people were feeling. And I think I'm in a very unique position that I'm able to say that, and I'm able to do that, and I'm able to communicate that. That really helped. The other thing that I would say has been so critical that we did, I talked about the cultural shift, but I have an incredible HR manager in Eric Rust. He's my HR guy. He is so great in what he does because it's personalized. So there is not these huge sweeping memos about, hey, people with kids, this is what we're doing. It's Eric calling you and saying, how's it going? How's the stress level? I can only imagine what you're going through, and here's what we can provide. What else is it that you might need? How can we help fill in the gaps for you? So he's intimately aware. Now, again, I have a staff of 81, so it's not small, but it's also allows us to still have some of that personal touch. And because he's aware of who has school age kids, he's aware of how to do those check-ins and with who he needs to do those check-ins with. So it's that personalized approach. Those two things, I think, have really kept everybody moving in the direction that we need to. That, in addition to the fact that our cause is incredibly needed right now. And we lead all of our all staff calls and all staff meetings. And anytime we get together as a group, we talk about the success that we're having in the space. And if we hadn't done X, that person's life wouldn't have been saved. Or if we hadn't done this, the catastrophic consequences could have been that. So everybody feels, engaged in the work that we're doing, and because it's so critical right now, I mean it's critical all the time. That's sort of a fortunate emotional space that we hold. Domestic violence is a really worthwhile mission to be working towards. People are connected to the agency. We had a good culture before, and we've just kept that culture really solid in this time. So I have not seen those pieces, but I'll tell you, and I share this with my staff, I cry once a day because of the stress that my job is stressful. That's the nature of the work, and it's a job that I absolutely love. The added stress of the distance learning and the sort of fear you have as a mom, and I'm sure dads feel this as well. My lens is as a mom, so I share it that way. The fear I have that my children are getting left behind, or the kids that are in my care, and I include my employees' kids and the kids that we have at shelter, are somehow getting left behind in all of this because they're not at home with a parent over their shoulder, is sometimes difficult. In fact, last night, as we're sitting on the, it's parent teacher conferences today, I was incredibly stressed because all of a sudden my daughter's grades just came through, and it's like she's got these missing assignments. I had no idea, right? And so there is a level of all that going on as well. But I think because we recognize it and we talk about it, and I'm very vulnerable and humble when I talk to my staff about it, like I'm worried my kids are getting left behind too. And we have that open dialogue and that open conversation, it helps. The other thing that we have all tied into this is we have an employee assistance program. So if people need to connect with a counselor, or they need support and help, and going to their supervisor or to HR isn't comfortable for them, they have a whole additional outlet unrelated to the agency that's completely confidential they can tap into to get support.
Wow, that's great.
And it is amazing and comprehensive. Are there any new policies that either the EAP or you yourself have implemented that help with balancing. And you've touched on a number of really adaptive, supportive, and really flexible kind of arrangements as far as maintaining a healthy work-life
Yeah.
balance. Have there been some changes?
Yeah. So I'll add to all that. So one of the things, so a lot of this I think is like we had a good culture before, and I make sure I take vacation. I make sure my direct reports take vacation. We're not Korea, right? Where you don't come in before the boss and leave after the boss. That's not the culture that I want here. First of all, the work that we do is too intense to require that kind of lifestyle. So the culture here already before that was when we do employee reviews and we review on accountability and all those kinds of things, you get knocked down points in your employee review if you have not taken your vacation. So we already had an environment of work-life balance that comes from the top down. People look to me and they look to my team to see if you're taking vacation, then that kind of eases it off. And what's it like when you go on vacation? Do you come back to 100 emails and 99 voicemails? So we had already sort of figured that out pre-COVID. We have put some new policies in place. So we have a policy where you can only carry over 80 vacation days a year, PTO days a year, or 80 hours, sorry, not 80 days. That'd be insane. 80 hours. We lengthened that this year and said, hey, we know a lot of vacations got canceled. We know we pulled on your time a little bit more because we needed to sort of figure out logistically how to get some of this stuff done. And so that helped, and that kind of eased for folks. And again, it's an individual approach too. It's like, hey, we know this one family in particular, they had a 2-week vacation planned for Italy. And the way, there's all different kinds of things, the way it works with the airline and all those kinds of things, but they're able to sort of reschedule that vacation. And they know that because they're working here, that's all okay, right? Well, we're going to figure that out. They're going to be made whole. They're going to have this great experience. So that's good. The other thing that I'll say, Laird, a little bit in that space is very early on in all of this, we got some literature actually out of University of Texas, and it was really a chart on how to manage COVID within the workplace and what is an exposure and what's the definition of an exposure. And if this, then that, if this, then that. We put that in place. So we've had 7 COVID positive staff. We have not had one staff to staff transmission. We have not had one staff to client transmission, and we have not had one client to staff transmission, which means it's working. The other thing that we do, we don't like, if somebody tests positive for COVID, we don't advertise that. What we have in our policy is that if somebody tests positive, we will contact trace that person internally, and you'll be notified if you need to go and get tested, and then you need to quarantine. We also then, depending on the ebb and flow of testing availability, created a whole structure outside of testing that still kept everybody safe. This lowered the stress level in the agency immensely because at the beginning, everybody thought everybody had COVID, and we had 500 clients a week that walk in the front doors of our main building, and then we have our entire shelter population and our hotels and our apartments, and it's not like we stopped working with people. But the policies gave people some relaxation around, okay, I know, and because that trust already existed, I know that if I meet that definition of exposure, Eric's going to call me and I'm going to need to get tested and I'm going to need to quarantine, and I'm not going to lose pay. I'm going to be whole financially. So all of those kinds of things allow people to focus on the work that's in front of them and not worry about these other things that they don't have control over. But as an employer, you can really relax that workspace, and that helped as well. And we also, through CARES Act money, brought in, we have these cleaners that come in once a month it's almost out of something like Monsters Inc. when the child, they're in like these hazmat suits, they spray everything down. And then we have a whole cleaning protocol in place as well. All of those are just a long way of saying it relaxed the tension staff were feeling, so they knew, this place was safe and that we cared about them as an employer. Those have all been really
And
helpful.
Are any of your employees bringing their children into the office for the distance learning?
So my son is actually right now sitting outside my office. We try not to, not because it's the environment in which we work is difficult, right? We have people coming in here in all states of stress. We also run full batterers programs, so we have batterers coming in and out. It's not really an appropriate place for kiddos. But we have said during COVID, look at if this is what needs to happen, check with your supervisor and let's figure out what we can do. We are also, our main office is right across from the Heinrich YMCA, and I cannot thank that group over there enough, not only for my kids, but we have also other staff children that go there, but also for our clients. So we have some clients for whom doing the type of counseling that they need and the support that they need telephonically is not, it's not that it's not an option. It's just not appropriate for the circumstances that they're dealing with. They may not be safe in their home, right? Because they may still very much be living with their abuser and trying to figure out how to exit, and they're using us for that, and their home's not a safe place to have that conversation. So they still need to come into the building. So the YMCA has been great in that even our clients' children, given their YMCA protocols, we're able to support the work we do. And that's another just sort of this community, Las Vegas has really come together, and no one's advertising, hey, we've got all the answers, but if you need solutions, there are plenty of nonprofits, at least in my space, that are like, hey, I can help you with that. And I think for-profits are probably in the same boat. But that's been really helpful. The YMCA, I can't say enough about Mike and his team over there have been incredibly supportive of the kids. And I know Boys and Girls Club also has been running a program similar, and Andy Bischel and his team have been doing great work. So that's that sort of nonprofit, sort of like, how can we fill in the gaps? And Diane and I were talking about communities and schools has also, been a major player and super helpful on some of the technological fronts we've struggled with. So there's a lot of people doing really great work in this space. But I'm hyper aware because of the world I work in. I think for employers, your HR teams, especially large employers, your HR teams would be well served to connect with even if you just call me and you're fine to do that, or email me to connect around what are the resources that might be helpful for your staff. I can help you get connected and share those resources, because there is a network of support that not everybody's going to be aware of.
Wonderful.
So you've kind of addressed the fourth question. So Diane, did you want to go ahead and close it up with the last question?
Absolutely. And Liz, I think you've already started down this path, that your words of wisdom and advice that you could share with other employers as well as employees that can help make this work, because it is a struggle and a challenge from so many angles and so many perspectives. Is there anything additional you'd like to share with the folks who are taking advantage of what you've learned, what you've done? And this goes well beyond now your clients and your employees, for you to be able to share it through the Nevada Commission for Women channel as well. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the only thing, if I'm fortunate because I'm living this pain along with my employees, so that empathy is sort of like, I get it because I'm living that with you. If that's not your world as a decision maker in your agency, connect with staff for whom that is their world, and get to understand what it is that they're going through. I just one of my early mentors just taught me, ask a ton of questions to understand the situation. And I would say, create a group of people that are struggling or have school age kids, and understand what it is they're going through and what it is they need from you as an employer. And then work with the other decision makers to create that network of support. My biggest concern in this pandemic is not my kiddos. If my two children repeat the grades that they're in right now, life is going to be absolutely fine for them. But our employees that are working on the economic margins, they're the ones that are going to, the divide for their children will be much bigger after this pandemic. So I just took the sort of realization as an employer, it's my job for the people that are in my care and my workforce to make sure that that divide is minimized as much as possible. So your middle and high income earners on your staff are not your concern. It is, if you can focus in one area, it's your low wage earners, is particularly single moms in that space, because they really do have the possibility of being devastated by this pandemic that will have generational effects on their kids. So, you know, that's sort of the missed population in all of this. And I think that the reality economically for women in this space is women are the ones that are stepping back from the workforce to take care of the lost opportunity in childcare. If we can limit that as much as possible, then our fight for economic stability within the female population and equal pay and all those kinds of things will not be back as far as it seems like it's going to be. And that's our job as employers, is to minimize the effect of this on our employees, particularly our employees that are in that low wage space.
Thank you, and you've done a wonderful job of also summing up the mission of the Nevada Commission for Women about preventing future declines and sliding back from any of the ground that has been so hard fought and hard won and gained.
Yeah.
Yes, you have. That was a great, that was a great closing statement. So
Thank you.
at that point, because research has shown, and they did this towards the end of the summer, I read an article, and I need to be able to find that article again, that this pandemic could bring women back when it comes to the workplace and equality back to like 1972, because they are leaving their jobs and they're going, and they're staying home. And so, which is unfortunate, but, you know, in some cases it has to be done. So, but thank you again. And at this time we do have a few that are engaged into our Facebook. So I'll ask if there are any questions. Liz has agreed to answer any questions that might be on Facebook. What I ask for you to do is put it into the comments. I've started a comment. And then if you comment in a question, Liz will be able to answer. We'll just give a couple minutes, but to see if there's anybody commenting in.
And I will say too, because it's unfair to my ex-husband to say that I'm a single mom, I do have a supportive ex-partner, and we manage the space together. So I wouldn't want him to feel like he's devoid in this. He is a helpful ex, right? So there's that as well. And it's an interesting time for women to find their support networks as well, because
Right.
I also have, great groups of friends and people who I can cry with and commiserate with in this space.
Right. But it does make a difference if, when you are doing distance education so my kids are hybrid, meaning that they're at home 3 days a week and at school 2 days a week.
Okay.
But it does make a huge difference when you're trying to work and you have one parent at home versus, another parent, because, we are a household of two parents, but when you're doing distance education, you feel like a single mom.
Right.
Questions continually come to you on how do I do this and how, it's sometimes very overwhelming.
Yeah, and there's so much research around women pulling the third shift, right? It's a pre-COVID concept that we get the kids ready, go to work, and then we pull that third shift when we come home, which is dinner, homework, and all of those things. And there's plenty of research to show that actually women enjoy having the third shift and they're fine having the third shift. But now it's like, wait a second, now it's the 24/7 shift. Now I'm on all the time. I don't even have that drive to work anymore to de-stress. And there's also a body of research around women's stress levels going down when they're at work. So the idea now that we're working at home and we're still caring for that family unit with the distance learning, we're just adding layers of stress, and then our de-stressors are gone. So that pendulum has swung so far to the other side of female stress. And that it's not that men are not engaged, but the majority of the work is done by women. And there's research that points to that as well.
Thank
And
you.
then the impact on remote learning being that full-time working mothers, for the most part, is what we're talking about. If their profession is not being a teacher,
Mhm.
then to be put in the role where you are expected to all of a sudden, because you're in the same physical space
Yeah.
and the need exists, that you can take on what is in its own right a profession that really needs to be respected,
Yeah.
because it's not like anybody could walk into your job, Liz, or your job, Molly, and just do it seamlessly without being qualified, prepared, developed, and having experience. And yet that seems to have been the expectation for parents around remote learning. So
Yeah.
that's another layer of, oh my gosh, how can I get it all done? So lots of
Yes.
great tools and strategies.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. So we don't have any questions at this time. So we'll go ahead and close it up. But Liz, thank you so much.
Thank you both.
Information you provided was extremely informative, enlightening, and I can't say enough kudos to what you and your HR team have done. It is a great example for others, and hopefully others will take what you've said and the strategies, the policies, and initiatives that you've created and try to make it a better workplace for their employees as well. This video, for those of you who are watching, this video will go to our YouTube channel, the Nevada Commission for Women's YouTube channel. And so you can watch it at any time when it's convenient for you. Diane?
Thank you.
Thank you both. And Liz, you inspire me, and I admire all that you've done. And the Las Vegas community is very fortunate to have you, both on behalf of domestic violence victims, for all the work that SafeNest does, but the investments you've made in SafeNest being the type of employer who supports its employees is good business, and everybody benefits. So we're looking for those future generations to be less detrimentally impacted by the wisdom you're showing today and the compassion. So thank you both. And the Nevada Commission for Women appreciates anybody who's had the opportunity to dial in and pick up some great words of wisdom.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.